No detours, no distractions. Just bold ideas and real talk. This is Driving It Home with Patty Vasquez.
You know, I received an email a few weeks ago asking me if I would have the next guest on that I'm about to introduce you to. And I was like, yes, please. Yes. I'm very passionate about the work that they do. We want to talk about the Center for Better Aging, which opened its clinic in July 2024 inside St. Bernard's Hospital's Ambulatory Care Center in Englewood. They cover 22 zip codes on the Greater South Side, one front door for older adults and caregivers trying to get through a system that was designed by nobody for nobody, essentially. I don't know if that's the way my guests would want to put that, but in under 2 years, 18,500 older adults and caregivers reached, about 2,000 patients visits, 600 members enrolled. This is remarkable work. Let's get to all of it. Estrelitta Harmon is the executive director for Center for Better Aging. Yes. We're all going to do it, God willing, right? We all get to get older, don't we?
Yes.
So
that's the goal.
Right?
Yes.
So tell me about yourself. Where'd you grow up, my friend?
Well, I actually grew up in the north suburbs. So I grew up in Glenview. My family, both my mother and my father, born and primarily raised in Chicago. And I have a deep passion for this city. I raised my family on the south side of Chicago, went to school at University of Illinois at Chicago for undergraduate and graduate school. So I am Chicago ride or die.
Yeah, same.
And I think that's actually really deeply core to my passion for this work because it is about serving the city of Chicago's aging population.
I really think that there is, like, a lot of folks don't realize how many resources are available to them. And also there hadn't been as much communication about what resources people could reach out for, right?
Yes.
I think that there's a lot involved in this. So first let me ask you, why this path? Was this something that you studied in college? Was this something that kind of branched off from something else, other work that you were doing?
Not really, which is interesting. You know, I think that we all have our personal connections to aging, whether that's us aging ourselves or our families, our experiences with different ailments as people are aging. And I will say personally, I saw both ends of the spectrum. So my grandfather, my father's father, passed away at 64 due to a heart attack. And he was actually taken to the very hospital where my clinic is located right now. He was taken to St. Bernard Hospital. He passed away. He was actually the alderman of that ward at that time. He was 64. His then wife, my grandmother, just recently passed last year at 94.
What?
She had dementia and had my father primarily serving as her caregiver for the later years of her life. And so I saw longevity, but also the taxing lifestyle changes and really the commitment that my father had to take on as a caregiver. And so there was kind of seeing that dynamic of life cut short, but then also longevity and vibrancy. And she was really engaged and leaned on a lot of the services that we even support right now, like a senior building. She lived in a senior building. She attended senior satellite programming. She was at the dancing events. And so I saw kind of that spectrum. And then my mother-in-law on the other end, which really resonates with me now doing this work in Chicago, where we have a huge life expectancy gap. She just turned 70 last year, and her family couldn't understand why she was so afraid of that birthday. She didn't want to party. She was really afraid. And it was because she's never experienced anyone older than 70 in her family. She is now the longest living member of her family. And the reality for the communities that I serve is that that isn't abnormal. And so while we're seeing longevity in Chicago, we now have the longest life expectancy on record in Chicago at almost 80 years. I think it's 79.5. We aren't seeing that in the Black and brown communities, and the Black age gap, racial gap is still significant, still 10 years shorter than that. And so I take that deeply when I'm working with people, and even people ask us all the time, why do you say 50 and older? People are sometimes offended when I say 50 and I'm talking about aging and geriatrics, because we cannot wait until 65. And so that's how I really was attracted to kind of how this impacts people personally. And then professionally, this opportunity came to me. I was doing work in Indiana in the aging space, supporting their multi-sector plan on aging as a consultant. And this opportunity truly found me. I read the proposal for the initiative and I signed up immediately because I threw my hat in the ring saying if I could do even a portion of what this committee or this board had put together as the proposal that I would change the entire trajectory of the South Side. And so I'm excited that I was given that opportunity, and it's an honor to serve in this role.
Amazing. What an amazing story. I was getting goosebumps and I didn't want to, but really remarkable of taking personal experiences, I mean, and work that you wanted to do. And when you mentioned the age gap of life expectancy, talk to us a little bit about that, because I feel like some people close their hearts when they hear things that are based on race. When you have data, it's not a feeling. We don't feel like this is a gap. It is a gap. Talk to us a little about that.
Yeah, it's not something that is an emotion or a feeling. It is data-backed, factual information. And the reality is, in Illinois, there's already huge data, right? The aging population is transforming our demographics. 1 in 4 by 2030, which used to sound far away, but that's not that far away anymore. 1 in 4 people will be over the age of 65 in Illinois. Now, the numbers aren't that drastic in Chicago, but it's still like 14% of our population. It's a huge percentage of our population. And the reality is, yes, we reached almost 80%, almost 80 years life expectancy in the most recent census. But we know that when we look at the data from the same census that showed, 79.5 life expectancy for Chicago on average, if we looked at the neighborhoods, if we looked at the zip codes, we're seeing still 67, we're seeing 68, we're seeing really significantly different numbers on the South Side and the West Side. And the difference in those communities is just access to care, it is transportation, it is the availability of nutritious food, it is access to primary care and specialty care. It is not their desire or lack of desire to live longer. I think everyone across this band, in Chicago wants to live longer. It is because of the environment in which they were either born or live. That is really a differentiator. And so there is huge amounts of data on this, and I'm really passionate about us leading the effort to close that life expectancy gap.
I am too, and that's why when I saw the proposal, when someone reached out, I was like, yes, yeah. Like, how do I? Yes, please. So talk to us a little bit about when you mention all the elements that are there's your model is 4 words, is that right? Predictive, preventative, personalized, and participatory. Is that right?
Yes, that's 4 Ps.
Yeah. So let's start with what's the hardest one to fund, would you say?
Yeah, so I won't take credit for the 4 Ps. So this has existed far beyond or before Center for Better Aging, but that is how we integrate kind of our approach to whole person care. And I think the hardest part of that is preventative, because a huge component of preventative is educational. It is getting the information out. It is ensuring that people are aware that healthcare is not meant to be reactive, that it is meant to be kind of ongoing maintenance, right? Like we take care of our car, or we hope to take care of our cars, right? That you'd be going in for the checkup, not because something's wrong, but because you're supposed to check in when nothing's wrong, right? To stay well. And so that's, especially in the communities we serve, a huge milestone for us to be able to say that we've reached, in 1 year, 20,000 people. Most of that reach was education. It was health education, wellness information. It was informing them about vaccinations, diabetes, well, you name it, we're teaching it. And that's really the biggest barrier, is if we can get people to realize that they can go to a primary care physician, that they don't have to utilize the ED or for their primary care, or they don't have to wait until something happens, then we can keep them whole. We can keep them happy. We can keep them healthy and out of the emergency department and living a little bit longer.
I scroll a lot on social media, and I think now that my algorithm is like, you're over 55 now. Here's what you should be doing. But to your point about, medicine should be, a part of your life, going visits and checkups rather than reacting to not feeling good. How do we prevent getting to that point? There are indicators along the way, whether it's high blood pressure, cholesterol, all those kinds of elements, right?
Yes, absolutely. And I'm going to throw one into that pot: social connection.
Yes, I should have mentioned that. Yes, tell us about that.
Yeah, so many times we think about health care and our health outcomes, and we think, health only. We may expand that conversation, and we should, because most of the predictors of our health outcomes are social. It's transportation, food, all those things. But more importantly, I think, to this conversation, especially in the communities we serve, on the South Side, 1 in 3 older adults lives alone. Social connection is huge. I think people have heard it before. They say loneliness is as bad for your health as smoking a pack of cigarettes a day. That's real. We say higher rates of hypertension, higher rates of diabetes, and that's not saying that the other things like food and diet aren't important. It's saying that if you are lonely and isolated, you're at that much higher risk of also being ill, that much higher risk of falling and actually having a severe injury. And so a lot of the work that we do also is not even just about education, but social connection, because that is an intervention. It actually is a health intervention to connect people, to keep them a part of the community and engaged and caring about the things that are happening around them. And it adds also to our community because aging adults have something that can contribute. They have wisdom.
Yeah.
We want them engaged in the community too. And so it's been really great addition to our healthcare model. It's not just about healthcare intervention as it's traditionally thought. It's about all the other ways: social connection, transportation, food access, all the other ways that we can keep people healthy.
I agree completely. I can see the difference. Like, I think that because I get so busy, my mother, we live with my mom. She's 91 years old, and I can see the difference. I was very busy. I was kind of consumed by work, and then I wasn't really. There would be a day or two when I maybe didn't see her, but my husband and my kids, I just figure we're all in the same house. But now I make a point of making sure I go down there. I had one of her doctors told me I should put a camera in her house in case she falls, and I'm like, I don't know if I'm ready to watch Abuelita. For this, I don't think she wants that either. I mean, there's some dignity too, right?
Yes, and that's unfortunately the reality of caregivers and family members daily, right? Making those decisions of when do I need to make that change?
Right.
When do I take the car keys? When do I have to add a camera to a private space?
Yeah.
And the reality is you have to kind of trust your gut and your family dynamics to make those decisions. But yes, absolutely. Critical to aging well and aging gracefully and better aging, right? It's literally my brand and our organization's brand is dignity. Is their ability to be independent and have dignity and age gracefully and age in place, right? In a home,
Yes.
as opposed to being in an institution if that isn't their choice. Yeah.
And I think, as you mentioned, some of the elements that lend itself to how you can stay in your home to the best of your ability to be independent. I think we all want that.
Absolutely. I mean, I can't speak for everyone.
I would think.
But I would think, yes.
I mean, maybe some people want it. Let's take a break here. We are in studio with the executive director of Center for Better Aging. The website is centerforbetteraging.org. Again, centerforbetteraging.org. We're talking to Estrelitta Harmon. I love this name, by the way. Your name is beautiful. Let's take a break here and continue our conversation on WCPT 820, KKNW 1150, KTNF AM 950, and of course, all of our friends tuning in digitally on Facebook, YouTube, and Minocqua Brewing Company Substack. Find our podcast at heartlandsignal.com.
You're listening to Driving It Home with Patty Vasquez.
Thank you so much for joining us as we continue our conversation here on WCPT 820, KKNW 1150, KTNF AM 950, and of course, everyone tuning in digitally. I have to often stop myself from taking advantage of the fact that I have very talented, incredibly experienced people in different fields, and not overwhelm them with my own stories. However, one of the reasons I was so excited to have Executive Director of Center for Better Aging, Estrelitta Harmon, join us is this is something that this isn't a career path for me, but I have thought, because of caring for my dad when he was ill and now being the primary caregiver, I know, for my mother and an adult son with severe disabilities. I was telling Estrelitta I'm a sloppy sandwich, because that's what we call people who are caring for a child and caring for a parent. We're the sandwich generation, right?
Yes.
And tell us a little bit about caregivers not identifying. You mentioned off the air that people don't see themselves as caregivers.
Yes. So 2 years ago, we received funding through the CVS Health Foundation to stand up, amongst other things, caregiver support program, and social programming to reduce social isolation, as I was mentioning, kind of how critical that is. We thought that we would have an overflow of people who were just saying, yes, thankfully, there were some resources to support me. I can't wait. Sign me up. Whatever you're offering, I want to do it. And the reality was, when we went to promote the program, there were so many people who either, one, just did not identify themselves as caregivers. They said, oh, that's my family member, it's my responsibility. Or two, identified maybe as a caregiver, but didn't want the help. even when they admitted that they needed the help. And so there's a bit of this disconnect. And we know, I mean, the numbers are staggering. Just in Illinois, it's like hundreds of, I think it's 325 billion? Don't quote me, but it's billions of dollars of unpaid caregiver work each year. And yet, because some people are choosing, but mostly I think because people are required to provide that care. And yet we don't really have a system set up to support fully the caregivers or the aging adult in a way that would be comparable to that level of contribution. And so, yeah, we've stood up programs. We've tried to really hear and survey and really engage our caregivers that are now participating in our program to understand, what do you need? What kind of language helps you better understand, the support that could help you thrive? And then also to kind of educate on that guilt that comes with actually, seeking out respite care or taking a vacation when you are a primary caregiver, that those things are necessary, because guess what also increases Alzheimer's or risk of Alzheimer's? Stress, right? Yeah. And so there's a bit of, we've got a lot of caregivers aging themselves, sandwich generation, who are caring for aging adults who have Alzheimer's or dementia. And they then are kind of fulfilling that cycle, right? Taking on that stress independently or with their family. And so our goal is really to provide that opportunity to say, hey, caregivers, we hear you, we see you. Here's a program where we can support you and bring you into a community of others who relate, because it's also a very lonely journey to be a caregiver. And, it's okay. It's okay if you actually do need support.
It is. And I was mentioning that it's often hard to ask for help or say that you need help, because we all want to feel like, I got this. There's a lot of that attitude, isn't it?
Absolutely. And I think our society also has made it feel as though if it is your family member, you must do it. And that if you don't and you seek hired help or an institution, that's some kind of failure.
Right.
And the reality is that it's a financial commitment, it is a time, energy, family commitment in many instances. And so I really just encourage people to do what's best for them and their family and also their well-being.
What kind of resources? Because the caregiving space, one, whether it's from a family member, but also people who have it are making a living at caregiving, it's one of the most undervalued elements of our society, services of our society. And I think it's a global crisis, isn't it, for caregivers?
It is, and a huge workforce shortage.
Yeah.
And so one of our partners, we do this work through a collaborative model. And so we've got 40 plus community partners. One of our core collaborative partners is Chicago Commons, for example, and they provide home care services. And the reality is that there's always going to be a wait list. There's always going to be a demand. And they really can't even train and fill that quickly enough. And so we do work with a lot of organizations to provide referrals to other home care entities and kind of support families in navigating that decision. It's a very critical decision if you choose to bring someone into your home or your loved one's home. And so we support that in the best way we can.
And tell us a little bit about, for families listening, so this is the Illinois HFS agency, Manage My Case at abeillinois.gov, right? Is this where notices live?
Yes, Abe. Yes, yes.
And so what should caregivers do? Is there a deadline coming up on January 1st for caregivers to do something? I just got some information from a listener. Is there something that they should be registering or what they should know about being on this website?
So what's happening in January 1st is all of the HR1 changes, the big bill.
So we're getting the big, beautiful bill. I must have buried that lead. Because that changed Medicaid. Illinois is implementing work requirements. Right?
Yes, and so there's a lot of notifications coming out from the state, and so you could certainly lean on the resources and the notifications coming from the state. A lot of that also, and I don't know this is specifically what the listener was speaking to, but if you are a caregiver and you are on Medicaid or you receive Medicaid benefits, a caregiver can actually receive an exemption. So if you are unable to meet that threshold for work or volunteer hours, and you demonstrate that you're a caregiver, I don't know what the documentation requirements will be, but that does qualify as an exemption. So it's really important that caregivers who are doing double duty, maybe you're working part-time because you're a caregiver, that you won't have that burden of meeting that work requirement because you can qualify for that exemption. So I don't know if that was what they were speaking to, but the notifications, incredibly important to stay up to date on what's coming from the state so that you're aware of everything coming out in January.
Wow. Okay. So again, folks, it's the Center for Better Aging.org is the website. Again, Center for Better Aging.org. When we talk about, one of the things I was mentioning off the air is I now that I've hit the double nickels, but I've been thinking about it for over a decade, even before that, when my dad died 25 years ago. But even with him at 68, like, he was very stubborn about accepting help, right? And so I imagine with the generation of older folks, they're like, I don't need your help. I'm fine. I don't need it. What are some of the sort of ways in which we can first mindfully ourselves be aware that we're getting older? What do you recommend people do with checking in with themselves?
Yeah, I think one thing is to be real about changes happening to your body and your mind. It's very easy to say, oh, I woke up, there's an ache and pain, and go about your day. I do that. I actually did that today. I was in meetings. I was like, oh, my back is hurting me. And I just took a pain medication and kept on with my day. But the reality is, the more that you're feeling those aches and pains, you really do need to be reaching out to your primary care physician and establishing care, if you don't have one that you're regularly seeing, to let them know. And sometimes we forget about things by the time we reach the doctor. Keep a notepad. Write down, hey, I've been tripping. I tripped 3 times this week. I'm clumsy, but that's abnormally high. Or, I've been having back pain, or I'm getting headaches frequently, because some of those things are signs of either something developing or that exists. And sometimes it's medications that we're on, right? Or you start a new medication and suddenly you are tripping or falling because it's causing a little bit of delirium, right? And so writing that down helps your provider then better care for you. It also can help your family member, if you bring somebody with you to your appointment, to better have an understanding of what's happening with you when they're not around. And I will say the other thing is, a lot of the times, especially because of our societal norms, we talk about some things like forgetfulness as, aging norms, right? Oh, they felt, that's a part of aging, right? Or they are forgetful, that's a part of aging. Some of them are actually severe signs of something being wrong. So we need to take them a little bit more seriously and, again, take note of them and report them and share them with either a family member that you trust or your primary care physician.
Well, I appreciate all of that. And you have an event coming up that people should know about as well?
Yes. So this work is only made possible by the funding that keep the doors open and the lights on. And we are actually doing our inaugural golf outing called Fairways for Better Aging at Harborside International Golf Center on August 26th. So that's actually next Wednesday. But we are still promoting the event because we want to welcome anyone who's available and would love to join us on the course. We have a regular golf experience, so foursomes, who can get out there and play. But we also understand that not everyone is a golfer. And so we offered a social pass that includes a golf clinic and fun things like small bites and mimosas and a much more social experience. And then closing it out with a fun kind of 19th hole after event. To round out the evening and really just learn more about the work and how you can contribute. And again, we're just excited to launch our fundraising event in this way because the dollars are needed to support an aging generation. And Chicago is in need of these resources, and the Center for Better Aging is here to offer them.
Well, thank you so much for this wonderful conversation and for sharing so much information that's important to our listeners, whether they are, we're all getting older, so it's important to everybody. So
yes.
It's for everybody. Again, Estrelitta Harmon, Center for Better Aging.org. And is that where people can find out about the golf outing as well?
Yes, absolutely. It's on our landing page.
Perfect. Center for Better Aging.org. And look forward to talking to you again.
Thank you so much.
Whenever you want. You just let me know and we'll to have you back. I'm just saying. Bye, everybody. Love you all. Have a great night.